studying you for a while. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Wow, a little bit about myself. Well, I was born from my mama, and that was in Roseburg, Oregon, which is just south of Eugene, like 60 miles. And there was like 6 kids in the family, 5 boys, 1 girl, and then everybody moved up to North Eugene area, not very far from this school, off Howard Avenue, a place called Oak Drive, and that's where we all grew up. And I went to Howard Elementary School, and then Colin Kelly Junior High. I was in middle school at that time, and then went to here, North Eugene High School. I didn't really like school at all. I mean, the only reason I really went to high school was to run. I was a cross country and track runner, and Steve Prefontaine was running at the University of Oregon at that time, and so we always went to watch pre-run, and I wanted to be an Olympic distance runner. And I got really bad grades in school, you know. I got A's in PE and then B's and everything else, and so that sort of brought me up, you know, to a 2-point average, and it allowed me to continue to compete in, you know, cross country and track. And then, you know, I went in the military after that. I don't know why I did that. I went in the Army in 1974 and went to Germany and did lots of drugs there, actually. You go in the military, there's lots of drugs in the military, so be very careful when you go in the military, especially in Germany. There's a lot of hash and heroin and meth and all sorts of stuff like that in the military they don't tell you about. But anyway, I came out of the military, you know, like in 1977, and was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I was still just 21 years old. And at that time, I became a bartender. And I bartended for a few years. And then I started going to LCC for video and film production, because I was getting a little tired of bartending, because it really wasn't taking me anywhere I really wanted to go. And I was sort of itching to try to figure out really what I wanted to do with my life. And I don't like having jobs, I don't like having bosses, I don't like having people telling me what to do. And so I was trying to find a niche, something that I really was passionately in love with doing. And I sort of realized that maybe that was film and video production. And so I started going to LCC, which was a cool class, cool school for that, because it was a practicum. It was something where you could get your hands on the cameras and the editing systems right away. And so I went there for only about 3 or 4 terms, but learned how to use cameras, learned how to edit. And it wasn't computerized editing at that time. It was all linear editing, tape. There was no computers. It was really funky stuff. I mean, cameras were this big, you guys, and the field decks you had to carry were this big, and the tapes were this big, you know, and everything. And so you had to be pretty beefy sometimes just to carry the gear around. So then after that, I felt like I learned how to do video fairly well, just a little bit. And a buddy and I, Marlon Dara, who went to North Eugene High School also, and is still in film and video production, we formed a company called International Film and Video. And we decided that we wanted to videotape on cruise ships. And so nobody at that time in the early 80s was videotaping on cruise ships, and so we hustled ourselves to some cruise lines and everything, and convinced them that it was a good idea for us to be on board to videotape their ports of call and the people on board and people drinking champagne on the bows of the cruise ships and stuff. And so we were hired on like 3 or 4 different cruise lines to videotape people's cruises and travel the world. And so we did that for about 4 or 5 years. And that's really where I learned to videotape. And that's really where I learned to use the camera, and then also really learned how to do some editing, was through that process of actually creating our own job situation, and that was connected with something that I liked doing, videotaping and film and video production, and I learned a lot of it just in the field there. So that's sort of a thumbnail sketch of me up to, I think, before I moved to Newport, Oregon, and I started being a producer and director of a television show over there. And that was called the Oregon Coast Show. And I did that for 3 or 4 years, and it was a funky little show that aired on KZI and out of Portland, Oregon, and sort of covered the whole Northwest, and it was just a TV show about the people and places and things of the Oregon coast, and it was something that advertisers from hotels and restaurants and stuff would like to promote their little business to these big cities, so it draw people to their location. So they sort of funded this project, you know, through their advertising. So did that for years, like 3 or 4 years.